Recording in progress.
Hey everybody, welcome back to The Broken Brain. It's me, Dwight, here with you again, talking about the intersection of all things creative, psychological, cultural, and short filmable, which is what we're doing today. I always love when I get to talk to filmmakers, as you know, and I'm here with Will Crouse today to talk about his film, The Coder, which has made its world premiere recently at the Dances with Films Festival in New York, and coming up here on the 15th of March is going to be making its West Coast debut at the CineQuest. So you are in that festival mode, Will.
Oh, I am. Yes, I am. Thank you so much for having me, Dwight. This is really great.
Yeah, thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Well, let me have you. You know, I was able to. I know they sent me an email with everything, but I just clicked right to the screener, just because I just wanted to jump in without the description and things. And so this is a thrilling short film that that showcases a. I'm just going to say a coder would be maybe, one way to describe the character, named Mary, and just the things she's doing. How would you describe the film to people?
Sure. Yeah, I would say that The Coder is a thriller about a cryptocurrency company that is spiraling out of control, and the lead engineer who's trying to hold it all together without losing her sanity in the process. So it's kind of like, I would say the pitch is a mashup of like Black Swan meets Social Network. That would be kind of like if those are your vibe. This might be your vibe. Yeah.
So we kind of start right away seeing that this is a probably a high stress position, but this our protagonist is certainly experiencing high stress. Both, it seemed to me right away, not just the high stress of a job, but it seemed like she was having what we in the in psychological lingo we call invasive thoughts, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I would say that is definitely where the film starts, and it's sort of this intertwining drama of the difficulty of contending with like her inner voice, and also the difficulty of contending with like the external pressures of a fast run, high risk taking software startup, which is its own kind of pressure cooker itself, Yeah.
Yes, and the pressure that she's getting from the internal voice seems to be also, along with these kind of invasive type of thoughts, is a lot of self-talk that seems very negative, that she's not really feeling a confident self-dialogue inside.
Right, yeah. I mean, I've definitely experienced this in my life. I have a lot of friends who've experienced this. I've been on, seen enough internet commentary on the various internet platforms to know that a lot of people seem to experience this. But I felt like it was really something, I don't know, something about it I felt was central to explore, is how we talk to ourselves, how we create these narratives, how these narratives really influence our lives. I mean, it's that weird thing, right? Of like, in a way, you're making up the narrative about yourself, but the thing that you're making up also then sort of pushes you towards certain actions, whether it's keeping you in bed or whether it's your anxiety is driving you to, all kinds of behavior, talk more than you should, or, behave in ways that are not healthy for you. Like, I just find it fascinating the way that we talk to ourselves and how it has such a concrete real world impact on our actions and our life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And one of the interesting things I saw is that, as far as the feedback that she seems to be getting from her colleagues around her, is that nobody's really giving negative, at least in the real world that we witness. She's not getting that kind of negativity from the people around her, at least not from the time we're seeing. It seems like that's mostly, would this be kind of a case of, self-doubt that's transcending? Is that how you saw it too? Is that she's her self-doubt is contrary to the experience she's having?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's like, I think that I actually hadn't really thought about that, but I think that is right. That it's like, I never thought of it as something that was, the self-doubt is not a result of what her coworkers are saying to her. It's not like other people are pushing this on her. It is something that is generated within herself because of, and that gets into the, I really think these kind of things are so impossible to pin down. Freud seems to think everything comes from your parents. I think a lot probably does come from your parents. I think a lot comes from your upbringing, but I also think it can just be hard to know why we talk to ourselves this way. And a lot of it can have to do, I think the one thing that I know she has is I think she has a hugely high standard for herself. Like if you think you're really smart, and you think you should be achieving and pushing and doing all this great stuff, and you don't live up to it because, the world happens and you don't live up to it. I think that happens a lot to people who have really high standards for themselves, is they end up attacking themselves.
Now, I don't know a ton about the crypto world. So, if this is
Sure.
do you have that, or did you research this in order to create? I found it
Yeah.
fascinating to see this little world of like everybody's on these computers. They're doing stuff, and boy, the stuff seems like it can go very badly very quickly if
Yeah.
everything's
Yeah.
not firing exactly when and how it should.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, I made the movie. I wanted it to really feel like you were peeking behind the curtain at one of these crypto startups, that you really felt deeply in the real lingo, the real behavior, the real way these things are run, that it's not some kind of half-bit thrown together situation. But I also wanted to create a film that you don't need any knowledge of startups. You don't need any knowledge of crypto.
Mm-hmm.
I think the film works enough that if you have no knowledge of that, you still can understand the main stroke of what's happening and how things are going wrong. And yeah, to answer your question, I am a software engineer for my day job. I've been coding for 11 years professionally now. I'm a freelancer. I've worked with all different kinds of companies. I've seen all different kinds of situations in the office. But I have not worked in crypto, and I am fascinated though by crypto, and I have friends who work in the space. And so it was a lot of research. It was a lot of talking to people and understanding the ins and outs of it. To me, it felt like the right place, because I do think that while Mary, her internal issues are not a result of necessarily how her coworkers are dealing with her, I do think that they are fueled by the business environment she's in, the wildness of a startup, the move fast and break things, the high risk taking, dealing with investors' money. You're constantly feeling like the company's going to explode. That I felt really does contribute to her internal state and is a really, hot thing in the world of crypto right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it comes across too. I feel like there's a certain amount of this strange balance, at least as a viewer. When I watch something, there are times where I really get an idea that, whoever made this knows what they're talking about enough that they can just kind of show it. There takes a little bit of a depth of knowledge. I say the same thing when I watch anything medically. And they don't necessarily, you got some things that go in depth and say, we're going to use all this lingo. Others and I feel like this is the balance you struck very well, which is watching it, I would assume that, yeah, you know a lot about how it works. However, I don't have to. And so it just seemed like sometimes things just come across as like schlocky, and this
Right.
seems like the person didn't really know. But this one,
Right.
I can tell you knew more than you were saying, and it comes
Right,
across
yeah.
actually. It might be a strange balance to describe, but I get. It seems like that's what you're going for.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I mean, I definitely think that sometimes things can get really over bogged down in the exposition, and we have to spoon feed the audience every little bit so that they perfectly know every little thing that's said and every implication. And it's a balance. You want your audience along for the ride. You want them to understand the human stakes, the business stakes, but I don't think they need to understand every little lingo piece. And I think that I don't know. I hope that helps people lock in and keeps the story kind of rocketing, as opposed to, like you said, getting too bogged down and like, okay, we've got to explain all this, and the exposition can really just, I think, sometimes kill a piece.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, and it becomes immediately apparent because things are And see, here's my, I didn't feel like I needed to know what the things were because you could tell. Here's this program. This one stopped working. That's bad. And every second it's not working, people are losing money and the value
Yeah.
is getting affected. And they're already getting messages saying like, what's going on? Where's my money?
Yeah.
And boy, that fast paced nature of things seems very overwhelming,
Oh yeah. Well, that is in large part due to Federico Conforti, who's my editor, and he is a wonderful editor, just a great talent. He This is my first film working with him, and he really drove that. I mean, I always wanted a chaotic film, one that I hope has enough bits of respite that it's not just that when it does ramp up, it feels like a ramp up, as opposed to just a constant speed. But the baseline speed is pretty fast, and that's Federico, and that's a real. I don't know. That was really something that he shaped, and it was an awesome collaboration between the two of us to get that pitch and that pace just right.
It's always fascinating to me how much you can get done in a short amount of time because when you're doing a short format, right? It forces you to tell the story like in a way that you can't linger on too much for too long, and yet at the same time not wanting it to feel. I found like I've entered a lot of short film creators for the show, and I found that the ones that are done the best, they could be just a few minutes long. I mean, this is a 15-minute film about?
Yeah, it's like that's including credits. It's 14.
Okay.
So yeah,
and that it can be just. You think like, oh, this is just going to be a short little, and it's like, wow, there's a whole story here that you can.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that, and that's like that's definitely the challenge. Is in 14 minutes, I wanted a full story. You want to know this person, you want to know their predicament, you want the predicament to evolve, and then eventually for the predicament to have some kind of climax and some kind of movement in the film, in the plot, but also this person, and that it's a lot to try to do when you only have a short amount of time. But I think the thing that's really fun about it is that I feel like when you can do that, you start to see just how big features can be. Like, I guess after doing this, what excited me is like, let's say a feature is 6 times as long as this or 7 times as long. Is like, if we can go that far in 14 minutes, how far can we go in a feature? Mm-hmm. How deep can we go? How wild can we go? How much ground can we cover in story as well as, personal interchange? Mm-hmm. And I think that, a lot. The answer is you can do a lot in an hour and a half to 2 hours. So,
well, and that's a thing. And I'm not necessarily opposed to. There's a lot of like longer films that it seems like people are making now, but I don't mind. Some of them are really good and fun, but at the same time, I think there's something about the tightness. There's a lot of times where I've watched things that it may be a long feature film, but personally, there's a lot of stories out there that I kind of wish the resolution of the third act was done by the end of the first act. And then because the most interesting thing in my mind after it's over is I wonder what happens next. So I would imagine this sets you up for to be able to tell a story that's going to be more compelling, because I'd love to see what happens after the end of this one.
Well, no, and I mean, actually, I gotta tell you, I'm deep in. I'm 90 pages into a feature version of it, and so I've not made a feature, but my dream would be to sort of open up this story even more and to have this be my first feature. So it's been it's been really cool to see just how much ground you can cover. And I mean, I agree. There are some films that I love that are 3 hours long, but I do think you can do a lot in 2 hours. And I think that it's a good challenge. And frankly, for an independent filmmaker looking to make his first film, trying to, figure out how he can put it together, it's got to be 2 hours. It's got to be an hour and a half. It's got to be. You'd rather hopefully get the money and then do more with less,
That makes sense. Now we see, as far as the characters here, you do a great job with the cast and everything. They really do communicate a lot with very little words, as far as you can kind of tell. It reminds me of workplaces I've had where here's the real nervous guy. Here's the guy who's kind of like keeping everybody together, but still like. And when I was fascinated by the boss character, the owner character, And it seemed to me like if someone's going to say kind of, well, let's say, I don't know, douchey tech bro, who
Yeah.
maybe isn't as aware of how the business is really run. It reminded me of all the bosses I've had over the years who, you get some who are great, but you get some bosses who they don't really seem to understand or care about what it is that anyone else is doing. They just don't want to, like, don't
Yeah.
bother me. You just do that thing, whatever it is, however you do it. Oh, we have a problem. I don't really care. You're supposed to fix it, but it's already a problem.
Yeah.
I don't want to listen to you. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean he's fantastic. I mean Mickey O'Sullivan, who plays the boss, that is just a joy to work with. It's funny, I saw a lot of great actors for that role, and Mickey had just a whirlwind about him. He just felt like he was a tornado sometimes, and I think that is really kind of the key to at least this character is there. There's something about him that is just, it's not only the sort of pushing his weight around, but it's the just inherent animalistic, like, risk taking nature of this character. It's the nature of whatever's the risky move but could advance us the fastest and the farthest. Let's do that. Let's take that. And that's how, I think some of these startups operate. Perhaps they have to operate to kind of rise above the noise, as they have to do big risk taking moves. So they need somebody like that. But I mean, it definitely has its detriments. It hurts the stability of the company. It hurts the stability of the workers. And I think you also see sometimes in tech that, yeah, the people who are running it don't necessarily know anything about the tech. And so it's this disconnect between what you're promising and selling and what can actually be done is a classic problem in my world.
Particularly, I would imagine, right? Particularly if they either don't know, or I'm not sure if this character was supposed to have this vibe or not, but there's with something that's so fast moving and has such potential for money changing hands, it's easy for someone to have, let's say, spotty ethics about what they're promising.
Yeah. No, I think, look, there's plenty of crypto companies that operate really well and ethically and above board. But we hear all the time in the news, you hear about another crypto company that, due to less regulation, is, acting in, very questionably ethical ways. And it is interesting, right? Because like we have, and it's constantly shifting how much regulation we have on our banks, but we have some idea that, okay, we need to regulate our banks because, you can't be promising money and then not recouping it. And then I think my money's with you, but you've lent it to somebody else. We have these rules in place for more traditional finance that we barely have for crypto, or it's starting to happen, but not really. And, you know, these exchanges frequently sort of act like banks, but don't have the regulations of banks. And so it really opens you up to a lot of questionable behavior.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's something that there's an obsession about in our culture too. I think a lot about this story when I was growing up with Bill Gates. People would always tell this story about how when Word was originally sold, it didn't exist yet. That it was essentially a con, right? It was like sold to IBM as an operating system that did not exist yet. And we tell that story as like, wow, that's amazing. When it's like, well, not if you're the person buying something that didn't exist. I mean, that's a con.
That's right. Or the engineer who's like told to build it. Yeah, exactly. I know that.
Yeah.
Tell this story like this is a great thing.
Yeah.
Like, what a genius. He sold, he lied to everyone.
Yeah.
I know. And it's, that ethos of, the genius tech billionaire is, of course, hugely prevalent. And there are a lot of people who are chasing that, and that is sort of their dream. And I think that, for every person that it does work out, what is the giant graveyard of companies where it didn't work out and they didn't deliver? They didn't, I would assume, I don't fully know the story, but I would assume that Bill Gates, he actually did eventually, maybe it didn't exist, but he thought they would have it. It did deliver. They actually did deliver it. But yeah, what if he hadn't?
Mm-hmm.
These poor people,
Right. I mean, that's a whole different story, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's a story I think that is, happens all the time, and I don't really see it going anywhere. Especially it's interesting in our culture. I have a friend who works for a German engineering company, and it's just a very different ethos. It's a very different. It's like they would never promise something that they don't have, or that is like it's his company, their whole thing, and they've been around for like I don't know how long, how many decades, but they would that ethos just doesn't exist in the same way. It feels, maybe of course not uniquely American, but it certainly feels very American. I mean, it feels like a very big part of our software culture, which is
Well,
interesting.
and there's a very American belief that I know that a lot of individuals that I've known who come from other, Europe particularly, have said that they find it fascinating, this thought process that a lot of Americans have, that not only do we wish to be millionaires and billionaires, we believe we can be. And when
Yeah,
in
right.
fact, the vast majority never can be, that
Yeah.
not only won't be, not, it's not possible for most people. Right.
No, it's
Yeah.
interesting. And I mean, it does make you wonder if how much of that drives the way we especially have been dealing with income tax the last like 40 years is like why you're almost looking at it, it's like why does all of us keep voting for tax breaks for the absolute wealthiest 1%?
Mhm.
And I do think that there's a kind of thought of like, well, I could be, well, when
When
I'm
I
a
get there, I don't want to pay a
millionaire,
lot of
I
taxes.
don't want to
Right.
pay 40% taxes. I want to pay 20% taxes. But yeah, it's interesting. I mean, and I mean, look, not American risk taking and American ingenuity is not all bad, of course, right? I mean, we also have probably we've got to. I mean, if we don't have the most startups in the world, we've got to be one of the countries that has the most. I mean, we are a country of innovators and people who start companies, and there is that side of the coin too. So, it's always a complicated story, but I don't know. I think that there's a lot of consequences that shake out when you play things the way that Americans tend to play things.
Well, along that line with the risk taking, I'm curious about Mary, and I want to know what your thoughts are. As I was watching her, she obviously is getting this intense pressure to succeed and to keep things running smoothly. It seemed to me, though, does she have a part of her that wants everything to fail? Do we see like certainly there's a fear and anxiety there, but I at the same time, is there a part of her that's like, you know what, I want it to all fall down too?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think that yeah, I think a lot of us we deal with this push and pull inside of when you have this dream, you do everything to make it succeed, but then sometimes it feels like it's killing you. Sometimes it's like you're working extra hours, you're not getting as much sleep, you're possibly sacrificing some of your health, like to this dream. And I think that you frequently do have this pull inside of you that's like, oh my God, just give up. What am I doing? And sometimes that's the right answer. I mean, sometimes the right answer is, choose your health. Like, it's a really, yeah, it's like the predicament of the dreamer. The dreamer goes for it and sacrifices for it and tries to make something happen that is unlikely to happen. But there's always that line of like, at what point do you need to say enough is enough and step away? At what point is the dream, it's not worth it? And it's not because you're a failure. It's not because of anything other than it's a big world and there are other priorities like your health, that might make you
Yes.
say, I need to step away.
Yeah, no, it's a very interesting thing, particularly when the things that we are trying to maintain often are both intangible ish and very tangible. Like, oh, and it's like, oh, I'm working for a paycheck, I'm working for health insurance, I'm working for all these things. I don't see or hold those things. I very much need them when I need them. But
Yeah.
then during the time where I'm sitting and becoming overstressed, which I mean, that usually we sit there and get burned out much more frequently than we actually go to the doctor. And when I go to the doctor, I need that to be in place. But as
Yeah.
far as the day to day, it's easy to not really think about that. We
Yeah. And
don't.
it's
Yeah.
interesting you saying when the goals are intangible, because I also do think about like so frequently the dream is like, it's this intangible thing. It's like what would make you have like what would make it feel like you made it? Like you're doing this startup, you sell the startup. I actually have a friend who told me one of my favorite lines. He said selling your company is a bad dream, or it's like and basically what he meant by that is like you sell the company and okay, like even if you do really well and you sell the company and you make some money, like then what? A lot of times your company gets sold to another company that maybe doesn't treat it that well. And then like your dream is maybe not even performing how well you want it to perform. And you got the money, but now you've lost your purpose. And it's just interesting. It is like we pursue these fuzzy, intangible things, these fuzzy, intangible dreams. And yeah, for like, I don't know what, I don't even know what for what, I think definitely it feels good. And when you have achievement, it feels good, but there's something strange about the fact that you don't know usually what your end goal is, but you're burning yourself so hard to get to that intangible end goal.
Particularly when, as I think is maybe in the case for Mary, the protagonist of this film, it's not even her dream, as far as we can tell. It's someone else's, right?
Yeah.
It's someone else's,
Yeah.
like, do this for me. And the burning out is for a very, very high stress, high stakes thing that is not hers.
No, right. Yeah. I mean, especially when you're chasing someone else's dream, right? I mean, like, I think I think that she likes cryptocurrency, enjoys that she's in the space, but right. Yeah. She's essentially like driving the machine for this other guy's dream. And so that definitely puts you into a whole nother place too, of like, really, how long should you keep that going?
Mm-hmm. Well, with this, you're coming out at the CineQuest Festival on the 15th, and then what can you tell people about how can they follow your work, and where do they eventually? Short films are so fascinating, but sometimes we don't know where to find them outside of a festival. So where would people follow you, and where are they going to get to see this?
Yeah, absolutely. So the best way to follow me, follow my work, learn more about the short film is on Instagram. So mad.sage.productions. That's my production company, Mad Sage Productions. If you follow us on Instagram, we're going to put up all of our news there about what other festivals we're playing at. And yeah, the goal is we're going to be playing festivals this year with the Coder. And then hopefully by the end of the year, we'll get it out on YouTube for a wider audience, for anybody to be able to see it. So if you want to check out the film and you can't make CineQuest, or you can't make upcoming festivals, yeah, follow us on Instagram and check out when we get it out on YouTube.
Nice. Any things you mentioned that you're working on hopefully a feature tied to this one?
Yes. Yeah. I'm deep in. Like I said, I'm 90 pages of the full script's probably going to be about 110, 120. So we're deep in writing a feature script version of this, which I'm really excited about. And I really think has, I don't know, I think could really grab people. And I also have another short film that I am editing right now called The First Date. And that's about totally different. It's a romantic comedy. It's about two women who meet in a bar, hit it off, and do LSD on their first date. And one of them, it's her first time with a woman, and the other one, it's her first time doing LSD. So that's a movie about firsts. I wrote that with a friend of mine who also stars in that, Ashley Crowe. So if you want to learn more about The First Date as well, follow me on Instagram. That's going to be, things will be happening with that. Yeah, totally different. That's a rom-com. I like the different vibes. My favorite movie is The Birdcage. So
there you go. Well, let me hit a quick reminder to the listeners out there that we do have as we do every month, highlight a local charity. And this month, the month of March, we are focused on Bake Their Day, which is a nonprofit bakery in Guam that supplies birthday cakes in a celebratory way to youth in custody who might not otherwise have their birthday really noted at all, may not have access to family or friends, especially in the facilities they're in, and able to give them a little bit of that sort of slice, I guess, I guess, literal slice of humanity as well as a cake. You can go to baketheirday.org to support them. And as always, it doesn't cost anything to share that. Any new donors to the Patreon this month will 50% of your donation will go to Bake Their Day as long as you remain a paid patron, as well as our bonus materials. So, Will, thank you so much. This has been great.
This has been great. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to the Court Arts Podcast Network. To listen to more Court Arts shows, visit courtamparts.com.